I'm just thrilled today to have an older friend, and when I say an older friend, I mean the length of time that we've been friends. I'm not commenting on her age at all. Janice Parker. Janice is a attorney that I met long ago in the early 90s when we were both younger lawyers and we were working on cases in the savings and loan crisis. And I've just learned to love Janice since that time. She was a great friend then, and she's been, although we hadn't been in touch as much as I wish we could have, we've been friends a long time. Janice is a graduate of UT undergraduate school with a political science degree. She went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. and got her law degree there. She was working as general counsel for Howard University when the largest law firm in the state of Texas called and said, come back to Texas. And so she came back. Janice, what I'd really like to do is let you introduce yourself because you know what you want the listeners to know about Janice Parker better than I do. So tell our listeners who Janice Parker is.
Well, thank you, Johnny. I am Janice Parker, and I practice law in good old Dallas, Texas. And I've been practicing law for 30 plus years. I truly do enjoy the law because it's an opportunity to help people and to meet needs. And so that is why I've been in the profession so long and continue to have fun doing it. I am married with children, and so I have those life experiences to help feed me as I address people issues, and I have been tremendously blessed.
Well, that's great. Let's talk about your family for a second. Your husband's perhaps has the most difficult job, perhaps the best job, but perhaps the most difficult job in the world. Tell me about your husband.
My husband is the pastor of the Golden Gate Missionary Baptist Church in Dallas, and he has been pastoring there for 20 plus, I guess 25 plus years. We came to Dallas as he was going to seminary, and then of course I was practicing law, and as our pastor used to say to us, well, he's got the big law from upstairs and you've got the law right here on earth. So yes, have a wonderful husband who's been pastoring a great deal, loves his people, and the people love him and us as well. And it's really been a great, great partnership.
I had the opportunity just once to visit Janice's church, and he preached, and I take notes during sermons, and I have enjoyed reviewing that sermon several times through the years. And what a great church! And a preacher's wife is a tough gig. So well done, well done. Tell me about your kids.
Well, I have three children, and I guess technically all three of them are grown now. My oldest has her own business, and she does community real estate, in which she tries to help small businesses figure out how they're going to buy property, invest in their businesses, and grow their businesses. And so she's very excited about what she does. My middle daughter lives in Florida, and she works at a law firm. Didn't want to be a lawyer, but she works at a law firm and likes being in Florida so far. My youngest is just 19 years old, just a few days ago, and he is having his first experience in college. Of course, he did it remotely this semester, so that's been a little different.
What college? Where's he going to college?
He's going to college at North Carolina A&T. He's in engineering and math, so I call him a little bit geeky, but they have one of the best programs, and so he headed there.
That's outstanding, Janice. You know, one reason I've been very fortunate on the guests that I've had, and I was asked last month was National Women's Month, I believe is what it's called, and I hope I got that right. And I'm sorry, say again?
Women's History Month.
Okay, thank you for correcting me.
The history part's in there.
And so I was thinking about who I would like to have as guest, and you came to the top of the list because you're a woman, and also because you're a woman of color. So talk to me about talk to me about that a little bit. Growing up as a girl and a woman in a professional world, and also a woman of color. Tell the listeners a little bit about that.
I'm happy to share that, Johnny. I grew up in the 60s, and that was the time of integration. And so big issues were facing our country of how do we integrate schools? How do we get people from one culture, one neighborhood to go to school with others who look differently from them? How do we address those concerns? And so I grew up during that season where people were struggling with that, but we managed to work through it and hopefully to begin to forge some new paths of people operating as one. Throughout the years, we still meet some of those same challenges, unfortunately, where there are barriers and thoughts. And
Yeah.
the hope is to keep working towards overcoming and working towards better understanding each other, such that we can live together, because that's what we're supposed to do, is live together, respect each other, care about each other. And so it becomes an ongoing concern. I see those issues in my work. I do employment law, so I do a lot of Title VII work in which there's concerns about discrimination based upon race or disability or age or gender. And so I work towards helping businesses address those concerns as well. So we are a nation that is continually developing. And of course, the recent social concerns have caused us to really have to pause and take another look at ourselves and see what additional efforts we need to make things better and make things right. And so here we are yet again on the cusp of something unique and new, and hopefully improving what's going to happen in this country.
You know, both of us, our Christian faith is most important to both of us. And I can remember, and I've mentioned this to you before, being in your church and your husband saying that there was a time where having black churches and white churches was okay. I mean, frankly, the civil rights movement needed the help of the black church. But he said those times have passed. And that's really spoken to me, that it's sad that we seem to be segregated still today. And I also recall, I remember talking to you one time. You know, I was kind of an innocent kid from West Texas, and I was asking you about the need for affirmative action. I don't know if you remember that discussion or not, but I just didn't understand. It didn't occur to me the importance of that, and you talked to me about that. And for our listeners who may be from a background like I was that just don't understand, tell me about the importance of affirmative action and righting some of the wrongs of the past.
Certainly, Johnny. An affirmative action, of course, has become or has always been such a negative term because people perceived it as placing someone in a position who wasn't qualified simply based upon their race or whatever qualification they were trying to fulfill. And that really is not the concept at all. The concept of affirmative action is opening the doors and giving fresh opportunities to people who have otherwise been shut out simply
Right.
based upon their color. And so you are looking for the best candidates. You are looking to give them opportunities. You are wanting to create an environment where they feel welcome to come in and to perform the job to the top of their ability and to the top needs of what the business may require. That may also, however, require that there be some developing, because many do not get that same opportunity. They don't get to the right schools, so to speak. They haven't gotten the same exposure or training. And so there are some gaps there. But that doesn't mean that they're not capable of gaining whatever it is they need to
Right.
operate as well as everyone else. And so, although affirmative action isn't necessarily used so much as in the present, but the hope at the time was that people would see a need to diversify the cultures in which they work, in which they operate, and to recognize that some groups have been at a disadvantage, to give some opportunities for them to get equal access, to catch up, to gain the same skills, to be able to go to the same schools, to be able to do the same jobs, so that we can operate as a society of equals in every aspect of what we do.
Yeah, and Janice, I've just been so convicted, and what from what I continue to see today, and thank you for helping me, move in a right direction. But I still have, if we're honest, we each have to continue to work in that direction. And talk to me about perhaps maybe with your kids or perhaps members of your church. I remember when I was first started school, I was branded as a slow learner because I had attention deficit disorder, and when we were kids, they didn't know what that was. But I was put in the slow class, and I can remember that. I can remember thinking I'm not very smart, and so my guess is that's a kind of a small example of how perhaps some of your kids or some other kids may feel. How do you help people who have some self-esteem problems, perhaps because of how society may have treated them in the past or their families in the past?
I think you hit the term right on the head when you said self-esteem, because we know and we can feel when others think less of us. That is somehow conveyed in either how they speak to us or what things they allow us to do, or whether or not they will even interact. And so those feelings of inadequacy, those feelings of I don't fit, they cross all kinds of issues, whether it's a disability, whether it's race or gender, or all of those things that Title VII tries to protect. So what do we do about that? We do start to need to recognize, to value people for who they are and what they have to offer, and then provide opportunities for them to overcome whatever their issues may be. I remember practicing with you, Johnny, in our younger years, and I thought you were pretty swift and savvy. So it surprises me that anyone would label you in that way. But obviously, whatever upbringing you've had, whatever opportunities you've had to learn, you've learned how to manage whatever your concerns were, and the best and the brightest of you has always come forward. And just like that was available to you, we need that to be available to everyone, that they get their best opportunity to overcome their obstacles and to live their best lives, to do their best work. And people figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are and operate in their strengths and build up their weaknesses.
And I'm fixing to leave this topic, but before I do, has it been more difficult to be? You're in two minority categories. Which one has been more difficult, Janice?
And that's an interesting question, because I'm all in one package. So
Yes, yes.
so sometimes I have walked into small courtrooms, and they were taken aback because I was a female and I was an African American. So that they hadn't seen either one of those or the combination. So you, since you're all in one package, all of those things are through that same filter. Um, I think in the most recent years, women have probably taken a step forward. African Americans have as well, but you see a lot of distinctions made based upon color and based upon nationalities and race. And so, if I had to pick one, I would guess that that's the prevailing one to me. But since African American women are, two and one, there it is.
Well, I love that answer, Janice, and I want to leave this topic because although I so respect your opinion, and you taught me so much those times we had our conversation. I wanted to touch on it, but let me tell my listeners, this is Janice Parker. This is just Janice Parker, and she is a great lawyer, a great person, and that's I hope the listeners get to see this or listen to this, get to know who Janice Parker is. Let's talk about practicing law. Uh,
All right.
you tell me what the greatest thing has been for you. What's the most rewarding thing for you as an attorney?
I think the most rewarding thing for me, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is that I get to help people. And that's what I see practicing law is. When I was yet a kid and wanted to be a lawyer, it's because I wanted to swoop in and bring in justice and righteousness for all and make sure everybody got a fair shot. And that's still why I practice today, is to make sure that the playing field is leveled, that businesses are able to accomplish the goals that they have and yet form a good community for their workers. We spend so much of our time at work. So most of our waking hours are at work. And often the things that we do, the people that we share the workday with, that impacts how we feel about ourselves, our self-esteem, whether or not we feel like we're moving forward or if we're stuck somewhere. It also fuels what we get to do outside of work. How much I make, what time I have off impacts whether or not I get to spend time with my children or with my parents, or if I can travel, or if all I can do is barbecue in the backyard. So work is significant, and it impacts everything that we do and who we are. And so working in employment law and allows me to have that kind of direct impact on people's lives. It sounds like, well, we're just talking about what the shift is going to be, but what that shift is may impact whether or not that mom or that dad needs a babysitter, or if they're going to make the football game, or all of those things about our lives.
Uh-huh. And isn't that the truth? You've been practicing for over 30 years, and yet,
Yes,
as
sir.
I read your bio, I see the last 6 years you've kind of focused on employment law. What caused you to notice that, to think, that's really where I want to spend my energy?
And actually, it's been more than 10 years since I've been
Okay.
doing employment law, and I've
Okay.
had a very interesting career. As I worked for General Counsel, then for a while I was in big firm life, and then I also did several years school law, which was quite interesting. But that was really my first introduction into employment issues, and so it just kind of took off from there. And you start to recognize how influential it is to address issues where people work.
Now you're in a discriminatory firm, Janice. I've got to say that because there's only one guy there. Uh, so talk to me about the Myers Group.
The Myers Law Group, of course, I think it's a phenomenal firm.
Sure. I'm
We
kidding.
really we really enjoy working with each other, and so we kind of formed a really cohesive group. It is not by design to be predominantly women. It just worked out that way. We were pursuing some of the best and the brightest at the time for what we needed, and that's who interviewed, and that's who came, and that's who we selected. Rest assured, we are always open to have a guy join on our team. He'll just have to kind of figure out how to maneuver with a bunch of us running around doing what we do. But Angela Myers started the Myers Law Group, and she's always been focused on employment law. And as I started to move into that area, it was just the right place for me to join. And another friend of mine had already come here, and so she suggested that I come, and I did. And we've just built from there. Yes, we do have a guy on board in our New Orleans branch, and we think
Right.
he's phenomenal as well. And as I said, others are welcome, but we enjoy doing what we do, and it just happens to work that way.
There are, and obviously I'm kidding. I've reviewed the bios of each of the people there, and you've got three partners and 2 senior attorneys, as I recall, and 2 associates, and obviously you're doing something good. There's some quotes about the Myers Group that I just love that I'd like you to comment on, if you would. Talking about the representation you provide, there's a quote. It says, "Tenaciously and aggressively address legal challenges for corporations large and small," and I love this next part, "while respecting the constraints of corporate budgets." Talk to me about that quote, Janice.
Certainly. We recognize that everyone doesn't have a huge budget for doing legal activities or pursuing cases. So we try to be, I guess, available to all. And certainly when we see a good cause, we jump right in there. Of course, you have to keep the doors open. You have to be paid something, but we try to make sure that we keep our costs very low. We also make sure that our billing rate is very reasonable, because we want people to be able to have access to legal services. And we primarily represent businesses. So we want to make sure that the small business, the medium-sized business that needs some attention has access to legal representation. Oftentimes, small businesses and medium businesses just maybe they haven't had to be in litigation, or they haven't recognized that there's some things that a lawyer could really help them do better. And so when we provide those opportunities, when we'll review information for a flat fee, or give recommendations that's not billed by the hour or at a more reasonable rate, then they too can play in the big field, because they've got the right representation to do so, and they've gotten the assistance that they need. And so, as I said before, we kind of want to level the playing field so that there's equal access to all.
That's a great answer. The theme that I keep seeing in the Myers Group website is what I talked about, is working well within corporate budgets. It talks about understanding the day-to-day operating business practices of your clients, partnering with having a partnership with your clients, and I think that's so important. I love that. And is that just something that Miss Myers incorporated from day one, and y'all have just continued that, or does that continue to evolve, Janice?
That's always been a part of us. Angela and I both have come from humble beginnings. Angela grew up in Louisiana, and of course I grew up in Galveston, Texas. And so we identify with the everyman or every woman, every person, I guess is the correct term. And so we like to be sure that those who grew up like us and who are just trying to run a business, just trying to do the right things, do have what they need. I mean, we recognize that a business wants to make a profit. They want to do their job well, and then they want to take care of their employees. And so we have always tried to understand each client individually, understand their values, what's important to them, help them stay on track to keep their head above water. You want to be able to keep the doors open. And everybody kind of wants their little light to shine in what they do. So help them to get the latest access to the latest information, the laws, whatever it is that it takes to help them function better. And then we help them take care of their employees, because we know if you've got a good employee, you want to keep them. They're the ones who
Right.
keep the wheels turning. And so we try to help them create a positive environment for those who work for them.
And I love that, Janice. I hope my practice somewhat is similar to that. That's what we really strive for. You also talk in your bio, it specifically says that Ms. Parker understands the boardroom perspective of implementing and enforcing sound employment policies while creating an environment that is employee friendly. Boardroom perspective, employee friendly. Expand on that a little bit, Janice.
Well, just kind of as I was saying, each company wants to be successful, and success means a number of things beyond the dollars. And so, of course, in the boardroom, they're talking about how to make it work, how to get things done, how to manage people, how to manage product or services. And so that's the boardroom's perspective, to make sure that the company functions. But as I also said, they recognize they can't do it without their people. And when you get good people, and you want to make sure that you maintain them and sustain them and educate them, train them, you want to make sure that they feel good about where they work. And then if those who come who need to be developed, you want to invest in them as well. So that's an important thing that boardrooms do recognize, that it's not about just the dividends or the money that's paid. People are looking for a place where they can, because they're going to be there day in and day out, that they can feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And that's part of the goal as well.
You know, I'd like to talk some about leadership, but a couple of things that I constantly tell the people that help me is don't be afraid to make mistakes. I want you to be making mistakes, because that shows you're trying, and we learn by our mistakes. And I really try to empower those people. If you get angry with those who work for you when they make mistakes, you're not empowering them. You're doing just the opposite. So do you help your clients in things as simple as talking about leadership, or is that more of a personal thing, Janice?
No, we think it's important for our clients to be able to exhibit that leadership, which is why, to some degree, we provide training. Oftentimes we come in advance of there being a problem, and I like preventative law, to where we can sit down and see what the concerns may be, sometimes do surveys and determine that there are issues that need to be addressed or addressed in a new way. Oftentimes people get promoted because they do a job well, but they don't know how to manage others in doing it. And so making sure that they get the skills and the knowledge and the training to know how to lead others is part of what we do. Of course, there are sometimes, plenty of times, we're called in because the situation has kind of gone awry. And so we'll do training on the back end if somebody can be rehabilitated. Try to help them see the error of their ways and how they can operate better, and give them the opportunity to improve if they're willing to put in the effort.
So what if I love that? How has COVID changed your practice? And I think that's great. I'd like to leave it at that. How has COVID changed your practice?
That COVID was a tremendous issue and impact on our practice. Our individual practice, we took a month off and we all worked remotely, which, who would have imagined that a whole law firm can operate in other places with everybody at their homes? But it worked. But we were also in a building and in a space where we could kind of be remote in and of ourselves and be safe. And so we did that. But COVID had a tremendous impact on employment law. As you well remember, new laws were given as whether or not people could take time off, how that was paid for, how do you determine who gets the time off, and how do you count the days and the numbers, et cetera, through the CARES Act and the other emergency relief, and parents staying home with children. That had a huge impact on employers, and whether or not they could have people work from home, and how do they calculate when somebody's off for it because they've been exposed or because they've actually had the disease. And we, when the laws came out and everything changed, we were kind of working 24/7. We really were, because every employer was calling to say, what do I do? How do we work that out? What do I do about getting my people to work, and how do I monitor their work? How do I keep them active? What changes do I need to make? Well, someone's going to be off work, so how do I calculate these days? What do I do? What questions can I ask? What things can't I say? How does this when I'm going for, PPP for the pay loan.
Right.
So all of those issues were coming to us. And so as soon as the House or the Senate would release a bill, we start reading to interpret what it might be and whether or not it might pass, so that when our clients were picking up the phone because they're hearing it on the news, we're able to say, this is how this impacts you. Here's what you should do. But it also gave us an opportunity to advise and to suggest some ways in which they could let their employees feel like they're cared for, but also keep their businesses going, because that was one of the huge problems, not only the health concerns, but businesses having to shut down because people can't work. And
Right.
so we tried to help people find creative ways to get things done, to still be able to operate, even if it wasn't at the full capacity that they'd worked before, and also take care of their people, to keep as many on board as they could, to make sure they were safe, and if they could work remotely, what that would look like. So it created quite a busy season for us.
Well, and Janice, incredible courage for the attorneys. I've written a few articles since COVID hit, and one thing that you'll understand, particularly as a litigator, is that it's always really hard to write a sentence that's really hard and fast. We want to, but we typically know there's an issue or there's a case on the other side. But I was able to write a sentence in that I finally had 100% confidence in. And what it was is, I can say with absolute confidence that on this particular issue, as a 35-year attorney, I have absolutely the same level of experience as every other attorney in the state of Texas. I mean, we were dealing with novel issues, and we were dealing with novel issues that needed immediate response. And so that takes courage, because at times you've got to give your clients advice that there's not a case out there. There's not a statute out there. In fact, there's a new statute. You don't know exactly, there's no, so I applaud you. Talk about the courage that it took to provide that very fast response to clients on new statutes that are unique.
Well, we just had to be open and honest with the clients, letting them know that this was new territory. And although we've seen some things that may influence how things are interpreted or what they might look like, we really did not have a guidepost except just trying to think about doing the very best. So many questions we didn't learn answers to until the back end. You've already implemented the policy. You've already made the decision. You're already doing whatever you did. But if you do it in good faith, with a heart and mind towards doing the right things, then you surely hope that you're going to come out on the good end of things. And so we modified as we went along. We'd give the advice based upon what we knew at the time. If things shifted, that client would get a call back, or sometimes they'd call us, and we'd rethink it, reorganize how that entity was going to function, and kept pushing forward. And you're right, it does require courage. It required, I think, more so courage for the employers, because they're the ones on the front line. They're the ones that, if the decision isn't quite the right one, they're going to feel the direct impact. I always tell my folks, I said, just tell them your lawyer said it. Hopefully that'll provide an ounce of protection. That's what my lawyer said. But they're the ones, because the decisions they make really determine whether or not they can move forward.
I do think that how your firm is operated and how you guys develop partnership relationships with clients. What I found is even in those times where we faced new issues, long-term existing relationships with clients kind of gives you a good idea of what you think they want to do, what the decisions that they want to make. And so you try to help them in being who they are. So long-term relationships with clients, there's just nothing like that, in my opinion.
I agree with you. The relationships that you build with your clients, the getting to know them, getting to know the persons who are in leadership and their thoughts, their values, the core of who they are, and then who the company says they want to be. Because each company has a culture and an identity, and they're working towards whatever that goal is for them. So you remind them of those goals and work within those goals and try to push everything moving in that direction. Every now and then, life doesn't fit into that, and you try to find the best options, but there's always an eye towards allowing them and helping them to be and become who they have in mind, the whole reason why they're operating as a business.
Right. I love that. We'll come back to the law as we finish up, Janice, but I want to focus back on Janice Parker for a second. I like to talk about leadership during these podcasts. So tell me what you think are in fact, let me put you on the spot. And I don't want modesty here. I know you are a modest and humble person. I appreciate that. What's your greatest leadership trait, Janice?
I think decisiveness, but with a heart for those that I'm serving or leading. So I do try to keep a servant leadership perspective on things. How would I feel? What does that look like for someone else? Not my goal, but theirs or our goal as a unit. Um, but I am one of those kind of folks that let's make the decision and take it in a step of faith. Of course, I call it that kind of faith where you've done your homework and you've done everything that you could to figure out what the best answer might be. But then that doesn't guarantee that that's the way it's going to land. So you take that step, and as you go, you evaluate, but you keep moving forward. And so leadership doesn't mean you always have all the answers or all the right answers, but you're willing to take an ounce of courage and move ahead anyhow. And just as you said earlier, even if you fall down, you get to get back up again.
I love
Fortunately, we live in a world where hopefully there are some more opportunities out there, and the failures maybe help you learn something or lead you in a fresh direction. So I don't have fear of failure. I don't think, but certainly I hope that when those situations come that don't end up perfect, and most things don't, that I can adjust and I can be flexible and I can grow and I can encourage myself as well as others to keep pressing forward.
And so let me expand that a little bit. I love that answer. Love it, Janice. Now picture yourself. I don't know if it's a group at your church or a high school or a university, and you're speaking to a group of young people that are just fixing to get out into the world. And what would you tell them as that the best what they need to think about? What are the qualities that they need to focus on to be successful in whatever endeavor they may choose?
Gosh, I think what I'd like to tell them is to know with an assurance that they have worth and have value, that they're here and they have a purpose. And so the important thing, the fun journey of life is figuring out what that purpose is, seeing what new skills you can develop along the way, and most importantly, seeing who you can help along the way as you go. So you won't have all the answers right now. There'll be some ups and downs, but count that as all a part of the journey and the positive experience of becoming who you are, because every event in your life helps to shape who you are. Don't let anything defeat you, but keep pressing forward, because we know countless stories of those who had some defeats but went forward to become great successes and giving great things to their communities, to their families, and just to the world. And it's important to know, to figure out where your great successes are, because we all won't be the CEO of the company. We all won't be president of the United States, so to speak. But when we figure out who we are and what we have to contribute, to be excited about doing it and do it well.
Do you mind if I just get that transcribed and just read it? What an excellent answer. Perfect answer. I just think that is just hits all the points. So let me just ask these three questions, and I'm just going to read them. Sorry, it sounds like that, but I always like to get everybody's that I talk to their perspective on these. So, for those of us constantly seeking to find ways to better serve our clients, how would you suggest that we address those concerns as lawyers?
I think it's important to stay on the cutting edge and to stay focused. Oftentimes, when you've been practicing law as many years as we have, Johnny, you're in your niche, your zone, you know it, and you can almost kind of phone it in. Um, and the experience is good because you do know things, you have had experiences, but still staying excited, still staying engaged, still looking for what the new things are, the new ways that are coming up throughout the law, throughout the society and the culture. The issues and the problems usually don't change that radically, but new
Yes.
and fresh ideas on how to address them are what is critical. And so being able to think outside the box, and that requires you to expose yourself to some things different from your everyday, to kind of hang out with some younger people to see out what their ideas are, or to venture into some new areas of the law to see how they may impact or influence or help your clients. So looking for new ways to add value to your clients. And there's all kinds of ways that groups can come together to do that. Lawyers can come together to do that. Gaining access to different organizations that will help you do that. So not sitting back in the office and letting all the associates have the fun, but keeping your hand in the game and staying on top of the new things that are fresh, or at least giving them some consideration, even if the old ways work best.
I love that. Gosh, I love that. That's just so good, Janice. I've talked about what we can learn from. One thing that I think that we learn from the millennials or Gen Z or Gen X, whatever it is sometimes they ask, "Why do we do it this way?" And I think that's a great question. And and that's what you're saying is be fresh and be open. What do you consider the top three qualities an attorney needs to effectively partner with his or her business clients?
My number one is honesty and integrity. It wins every day. When you are honest with folks about their needs, honest with them about what you can offer, and not try to be all things to all people, then I think you're respected for that. The second, I think, is being cutting edge, because they need to know that you're willing to go beyond the obvious, go beyond yourself, go beyond your personal knowledge, and seek out the best answers for them. So that's an important one as well. And then just know the law. Make sure you dig deep and know the law, and think of new ways to apply it and to use it for their best benefit. You want to help them to create the best workplace that they can ever have. At least that's my job, or meet whatever clients need that there may be. They'll appreciate it if you're honest with them, and that you understand them, understand who they are and what they want to do, and that you're going to give them the best advice possible.
Outstanding. Outstanding. And finally, in the spirit of shifting the law, what is your best advice for our current and aspiring law professional audience on how legal counsel can serve business clients as principal partners, advisors, and not just lawyers? Frankly, I think you've answered that over and over again, but if you have anything to add, I'd love to hear it, because everything you've said has been great.
Well, thanks, Johnny. And I think I can't say it enough how important it is to build a relationship, to understand your client, to address their needs, to make sure that you're thinking about them and they know it. And when things shift in the law, that they come to mind, and so you're giving them a call to say, "Want to give you a heads up, something new's coming down the pike." Just that kind of relationship of knowing that you care about them, and they'll turn to you because they know that you care. And so
Right.
that's about as much as I can add.
Well, and talking about relationships, gosh, let me also say developing relationships with those attorneys that you have the opportunity to share some time with, like Janice and I did decades ago. And I'm just so blessed that Janice and I have remained friends. Janice, for those listeners who would love to get to know Janice Parker professionally, may need an employment lawyer,
Sure.
and love as much as I do what you're saying, how can they get in touch with you?
Our direct phone number is 972-781-2400. Of course, you can get on our website, which is the Myers Law LLP.com. Although I will tell you that's a little shaky because Myers is spelled about 10 different ways.
Right.
But we are the ones that are in Dallas and in New Orleans and Louisiana. And so you can find me specifically at J. Parker at Myers Law, MYERSLAWLLP.com. You're welcome to give us a call and we answer questions if you need some help.
Well, and listen, if you got an employment issue, call Janice Parker is what I'd tell you, because she I'm not going to have to recommend that if you've listened to the podcast to hear. Janice, I can't tell you how much I appreciate a big Dallas law firm, or excuse me, a big Dallas lawyer taking the time, donating the time. Frankly, you may not know you're not getting paid for this until this moment, but donating your time to be on Shifting the Law and spending some time with me today.
Thank you, Johnny, for the opportunity. It's great to join with you today. Very proud of all that you have accomplished and of our friendship over the years. I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Janice.